people who are used to old technology, they're comfortable with it. And, if you're on a live well, and if you make a mistake on a live well, you're in trouble.
You're listening to Going Deep with Aaron Watson.
Get down.
You're going deep.
Mark, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
My pleasure.
I'm excited to be talking with you. I want to start off just explaining for folks the business of deep well services. So my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this equipment used for hydraulic fracturing, this vertical well that is needed in order to extract stuff from the ground, you guys build that, you operate it, you manufacture it, or you operate it on behalf of other companies. Is that correct?
Well, I'll just start from the top. So what we do, we're on the completion phase of the well.
Okay.
So we do not fracture the well.
Okay.
The well's already been in the horizontal, has already been fractured.
Okay.
Somewhere upwards of 100 times. Every time they fracture, they put a plug in, and again, up to 100 times right there. What we do after the well's been fracked, the plugs have been placed. We go down and drill those frac plugs out under pressure.
Okay.
We clean the well, and we put the tubing in most times to have the well produce oil or gas.
Gotcha.
That's what we do.
So how did you get into this line of work? Like, how did you end up interested in this specific domain?
Prior to this job, I worked for a company called Talisman, which is now Repsol.
Okay.
They were down here in Warrendale. I was on the financial planning and analysis side of the business there, and loved oil and gas, loved the energy space. I was approached by private equity originally here in Pittsburgh, Three Rivers Capital, to be the CFO. I have an accounting background by trade, so I came in 2012 as the CFO, and the following year they made me the CEO.
And part of the description on LinkedIn, but just in general, like, can you paint a picture of where the company was at that point in time, and then what kind of progress has been made here over the last 7 years?
Yeah, so when I started here, we did $7 million of revenue, lost $2 million of, we'll call the word EBITDA. That's, if you know what that is, $2 million that first year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was in bad shape. We had 25 people. The next year when I was made the CEO, we did 14, and we had some positive earnings there. And all the way up to last year, we did about $117 million and 30 of earnings.
Wow. And so
30 million.
How do you kind of break out how that was accomplished? Because that's the type of turnaround, or that's the type of growth that not only will create opportunities for you in the future should you want to try your hand at almost anything, but simultaneously, like, the kind of focus and the identification of kind of core issues, whether that was inefficiencies or, obviously you figured out how to sell this a little bit more effectively, but also maybe just like larger secular tailwinds as the oil and gas industry here in Western Pennsylvania grew, that also probably had an upward lift.
Yeah, starting out at the time when I said I wanted to be the CEO, I had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
And we tried 2-3 different times with crews. We replaced crews, brought different people in, and really, it took about 2 to 3 years, really, after 13 to get the right people. We got the right people in here, and when we started recruiting the right type of culture, people for our culture, was when we really started making a difference. We got people in here that were just very, very professional, very smart. They had some really good ideas on how to make things better in the industry. They had worked on the old technology side of things their whole career, and said, hey, if we do some things different, we could really make a go of it here. So I listened to them. We had a lot of ups and downs, but we created this one piece of equipment. We don't manufacture it. We have someone else manufacture, but we designed all these efficiencies. We're competing right now. Our competitors have 20, 30-year-old technology. Our technology is about 4 or 5 years old.
And so to some degree, we've talked with another, I don't know if you've heard of Gecko Robotics, but they're also in the oil and gas space, and they do these scans of different equipment for basically structural integrity. And it's a similar thing where like we're competing with humans looking for cracks in a wall, and we've got like a robot with however many thousand sensors. So it sounds like something similar where, on a basis of, if you're telling me it's more efficient at getting that oil and gas out of the ground, or whatever kind of like key metrics that you can then bring to the firm that would be choosing to either bring your equipment or someone else's equipment in, it almost starts to sell itself. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, it takes time
Yeah.
because people are used to old technology. They're comfortable with it. And, if you're on a live well, and if you make a mistake on a live well, you're in trouble. Everybody on that pad is in trouble.
The stakes are high.
Yeah, so you could have a blowout, and the worst things could happen, right? So it takes time. It takes customers actually having a little bit of foresight and maybe a little risk taking. But once we proved the efficiency, we really tried to sell that what we do, we get paid a day rate.
Okay.
When we're out on a pad. We can be out there, if you're on a well, you could be out there 3 days, you could be out there 5. We wanted to get off of that well immediately. And what we wanted to do was build a piece of equipment with all the efficiencies. We could deliver that to the pad in 4 or 5 trucks, where our competition is going to be upwards of 10, maybe 15, 20 trucks.
Wow.
Where we could put it on the well and move it over or erect it, within 8 hours, where our competition's going to be much longer. So our whole goal really is to get out there, get on the well, and get off immediately. Where you could see we're in the 20s, thousands a day, and a little bit higher. If you're on that well a couple more days, you make more money. But our philosophy is we want to get off of it.
Because if you get off of it quickly and you end up saving the client that brought you in that money, that's what guarantees that you're coming back
Right.
for the next well and the next well and the next well.
Our clients have what we call a burn rate. They have 4 or 5, maybe 6 other services out there when we're there, and they're burning $70,000-$80,000 a day with everybody out there. So if we're off of that pad, although our prices are higher than our competition, if we're off that pad, everyone else is. And we're saving them 80, maybe $160,000
And so what
per well.
And so the kind of calculation that they're making then is before they even drilled, kind of have a assessment, they don't know for sure, but approximately how much can be taken out with this specific well. And then it's really the kind of backing in calculation of, okay, it's going to cost this much to drill, cost this much to fracture, cost this much to complete. Are there other elements there to the process that they're calculating?
Yeah, they have, like I said, they'll plan simple terms here, 6 other services maybe being out there, and it's going to be $80,000 a day. So after we've drilled the well, we've fracked the well, we know those costs. Now we've got to totally complete it, drill it out, and prepare it for production. So they know their AFE, their authorization for expenditure, what that's going to be. They expect us to be on there 3.5 days, and our goal is to, let's say, get out there and get out of there in 2.5 days.
Gotcha.
Save them.
So if you could take it back again to 2013, you talked about these smart people. They kind of had a more efficient structure idea for completion. What was kind of like the process of ramping it up? You talked about these staggeringly large growth in revenue, growth in team size, growth in profit. But, kind of at the early stages, I'd imagine that this is mostly an academic exercise at first. It's an engineer maybe, and, looking at a screen, doing some calculations in order to kind of imagine this opportunity, and then some sort of test facility, proof, I don't know if there's regulatory approval associated with something like this, but can you kind of paint a picture for that process?
Yeah, so they had similar designs of equipment in the past where we went to a manufacturer and said, hey, we would like to do this. And, through the process of a couple years of learning, we took that, maybe that first generation unit to generation 6. So that's really the whole design of the unit. But then it's all of the other things that come in behind. So just because you have the iron, it doesn't mean anything. It's that we made the company, I'd like to say, professional. The good people that came in, from our back office people, we have the greatest CFO, to our president, to our safety people. They designed the company to be professional. So we're a little company here in Zelienople, but we think we're a Halliburton.
Yeah.
And
carry yourself that way.
We do. So we have competency programs for every person. They're accredited competency where we have a quality management system, API Q2. And I think still we're the only company that does what we do with that accreditation in North America. So this little company here in Zele is, trying to be the bigwig.
And I can see how those two things would kind of fit together, because you can get a technological advantage. You have the smart person, whatever, but it's almost like anything. Like I remember when, what was the little camera called that everyone got? A GoPro was like the new thing. And then, in short order, there were like 8 different knockoffs because it was just a smaller camera and someone had, taken it apart and figured out how it worked and reassembled it. I'm sure you have degrees of intellectual property control, but really what the long lever of brand equity and opportunity for the company is, hey, we like doing business with Deep Well Services. We like, operating with them versus another provider.
Right.
And at the margins, it's still humans making these decisions.
That's right.
So you talked about these standards, but if there's other...
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of everything, too. You surround yourself with mentors that say, okay, this is what you really want to do in the business. This is how you want to make it professional. We went from, just aside from just hiring people, we go and we do predictive index. We create a role for a job, and we're not going to hire anybody that doesn't fit that role, their personality, and really look at the cultural fit. So that's one step. You treat your company like we do. What we do isn't really regulated in the United States.
Okay.
So it's snubbing is the technology that we do. It's regulated in Canada. So we have about 8% of our workforce is Canadian, and they brought that professionalism here. So we actually treated the company like we wanted to be regulated to work in Canada. Not our competitors don't do that here. Our quality management system's another one of the things that, it just separates us. So we want to go above and beyond. We don't want to just show up and get on a well and get off. We want to create all those efficiencies. You're going to create efficiencies because we have a great training program. We want the best people out there, so we're going to pay 15 to 20% above market. We're not going to. We have the newest equipment, the newest technology. It's really, it's what every bit of the differentiators that we've created. It's what we do, what our competition doesn't do.
Makes sense. So in terms of different markets where this technology can be deployed, there's obviously the story here in PA and Marcellus Shale. There's the Permian Basin down in Texas. Are those the two primary areas where you guys sell into? Like, how do you have to make those type of calculations in terms of, like, we're still talking about physical iron going in the ground. Right. We can't necessarily fly that to the other side of the globe tomorrow.
Yeah, so our two main basins right now are the Marcellus and the Utica, which are Ohio, PA, West Virginia. We're in the Permian, which is Texas, New Mexico. We will be working in the Bakken, which is North Dakota, in January. So we're going to have a presence there.
That's new?
That'll be a new area.
Nice.
We are working in Argentina. So we're working with YPF, the national company of Argentina. We have the only unit of its kind in Argentina right now. We'll be training their people down there to run the equipment probably for 1 to 2 years. And then most likely we'll have two operations in the Mideast by the end of next year.
Wow. So I would guess, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but despite oil and gas being an enormous industry by just size and economic impact, there's a degree to which it can be a relatively small world. And you can almost say this with like any B2B service, which is there's only so many players. Like there's only so many players here in the Marcellus Utica area. There's only so many players in the Permian, at least major players that are really like changing the trajectory of a company like Deep Wells. And so as you're thinking about either a sales or marketing strategy, or just like how do we kind of find the partnership with this successive company, it's a pretty limited list and a very kind of like focused attack, for lack of a better word.
Not the markets aren't big,
Yeah.
is what you're saying, right? So, yeah, and again, we're big on data and market intel, and again, we have, I think, the person that handles our marketing intel, Matt Tarini, I believe you talked to him. There's nobody better. He knows exactly what's going on in all markets, where they're going. We pay attention to all of the intel that's out there from him, and we all, really dig into it too. But we know where you're going to be drilling, who's going to be active, who isn't going to be active, and we go after it. And it's a concerted effort, but we're very well prepared. Wherever Matt tells us to go, we go.
I like that. So another part of that, and in terms of like who's drilling, where they're drilling, that's like maybe very micro, like, site by site perhaps. But in the macro, once again, as an outsider, we saw with the lockdowns and the crazy geopolitical events of February, basically through April, West Texas Intermediate crude go into contango, which basically indicates that the normal consumption patterns for energy was just completely changed by the dynamics of the day. And as an outsider, it's fascinating, but it's almost abstract. It's like the ticker on a Wall Street symbol of like, hey, this price went in that direction, but I wasn't necessarily like, maybe I felt it in like, not that I was going out to fill my gas tank every day, but like, oh, whoa, this is like way cheaper gas than usual. In terms of your experience going through that similar period of time being in oil and gas, can you just tell us a little bit about what that was like and what you were taking in?
We have some good advisors, board advisors, and they've prepared us or given us a lot of information in the past. The 80s was a really bad time. Mm-hmm. And when '08 came across, that was a bad time. We had a downturn in 15, 16, which was really rough. It was rough. That was the roughest part was for us. That was the first one we really experienced here. Nothing was as bad as what this past year has been for our industry. I think the world uses about 100 million barrels of oil a day.
Yeah.
It went down 10 million a day. So we had customers that just totally shut down operations. They shut wells in. They stopped drilling. They stopped completing wells. We had no work out there for a long period of time, and it's come back slightly, but it's very competitive now. Pricing is it's way off than it was. We were looking at maybe 500 people by the end of this year, and we had to lay off about 110. So it's been the most challenging year of my entire career, but I also believe it's probably been the worst downturn in our industry ever.
And so is an interpretation of like kind of finding these other markets, whether you referenced Argentina or these other areas, is that partially kind of looking for new growth avenues?
Yeah. So the North American market is. I think it'll always be there, but it's going to be more regulated, especially if, with the election and it's turned out. It's definitely not a favorable thing. So we actually made it a point at the beginning of probably 19 to start getting international. And that was the play, Argentina. And it was really just to diversify our base.
Kind of de-risking to some degree.
Argentina needs it. That's a main source of income for the country. The country's in a lot of trouble financially, so we went there. The Mideast is always going to be drilling. Most of their country budgets are related to oil.
Yeah.
So that's why we have a lot of people that have worked overseas that have that experience. So it's really okay. We just got to get people to know us. We can get the equipment over there, but our people know how to work there.
So is a way to kind of interpret some of the impact of like a change in election and the changes to regulation, it's almost to some degree like you're downstream of that, right? So if someone's not drilling anymore, that means they're not paying for those day rates, which means that you don't have anything for folks in your team to do.
That's right. So, yeah, more regulation. If they're not building pipelines, you can't put gas or oil into those pipelines. So, it's just if you're going from 15,000 wells a year in the country being drilled, you're going down to 10. There's 5,000 less wells. You may even go down less than that.
Yeah. So another thing from given your background as an accountant with a kind of a mind for finance, and then also just being able to turn around a company in the way that you said, where going from losing money to $30 million EBITDA, was there any sort of, not that you can be prepared for such a kind of severe, absurd downturn, but a degree to which you're basically making these choices from a risk management standpoint of, hey, we're putting our pedal to the metal trying to get up to 500 people versus like, let's at least have something on the balance sheet so that if there is a storm,
Right.
we're able to weather it.
Yeah, we have, we have a risk register, which we do. So, what if, we manage the company really around that. As I said earlier, data is our biggest thing, but it's, what risks are out there and how do we mitigate those risks? We never saw this one coming, but we did start seeing a downturn in October of last year, and so the last 3 months of the year were slower than what we were used to. So we were kind of prepared. And again, when I said we manage everything off data, we had some people, our back office here, set out, look, we're seeing a downturn. If we get to a certain point, price-wise, utilization, we're going to have to make these cuts. So we made the cuts actually fairly early.
Because you already had the plan in place and
We
the kind of framework for what that needed to look like.
And that's really, they did. That was probably the biggest reason we survived everything through. We have a very strong balance sheet that we've always managed to also, low debt and so forth. But we made the cuts early, and we were way ahead of it, and it's really helped us. This year we're used to obviously higher margins, but I think we're doing better than probably 90% of our competition.
So the de-risking and the diversification of locations that you sell into makes total sense. In terms of the way that, if you're kind of focused on snubbing or completion, is there the potential for an expansion of like the line of products or an expansion of the areas of that process that you guys are involved in, or how constrained are you there from a competition standpoint?
Do you mean just the market, or
like the offerings that you're bringing in terms of, like, you've talked about going from V1 to V2, V3, V6, but that's kind of the same function effectively that they're hiring for.
Yeah. So again, what we stayed ahead of is, we see a lot of, you can only make the equipment so good, right, or efficient. What else can we do? So we're going after data acquisition. That's a big thing. Again, it's just another efficiency. So what's going on downhole? How can we make decisions better when we're downhole, or how do we help our customer drill that well differently or complete it? So we're going after stuff like that, data acquisition. Really one of our 4 main things for the next year will be data acquisition and things like maybe some different lines of business that we're doing that go along with us and manage that a little bit better. So that's really, again, an initiative for the next couple of years.
Gotcha. That's just about all of my questions. I don't know, maybe if you can any other stories about Deepwell that you can share on camera, on recording?
I guess the most positive is you can really do anything with a good culture.
Yeah.
And if anywhere you go, anybody that looks for a job anytime going forward, it's look for the culture. The people are the most important. Everyone wants to say maybe sometimes the customers are, it's the people that work in your company. Make it a family. I think that's what we have here, and that's been I guess the biggest pleasure of working at Deepwell is the people that we have here. We truly do. We love each other, we have our differences here and there, but it's a great culture, and it's fun to come. It's not a job.
Yeah.
It's a passion, and you don't rue getting out of bed in the morning. You love doing what you do.
It's shocking to me how many times we've heard that from companies like yours that have experienced that type of growth trajectory. So we talked before we started recording about the office furniture wholesaler and COE Distributing out in Uniontown. Exact same story. They're so focused on how do we train our people better? How do we empower our people? How do we, keep them safe, keep them compensated, all these different kind of factors. And I mean, as owner of a small company myself, like it's been beaten into my head effectively how important that is.
Empathy is a key word.
Yeah.
And you make it that everybody. If someone has a baby, you're sending them a gift, or if they get married, you're sending them something. If someone needs help, you're there. And great example, a couple weeks ago, an employee reached out and had some issues back home, and I reached out to a couple people, and they needed some presents sent to the kids and so forth. One lady here wrapped presents, sent them out to them. We took some donations and so forth and helped them out. That's just what the people here do. They love being a part of something special. And when you make it that way, it's easy to succeed. Plain and simple.
That's beautiful. So was there a point in time before, you said you wanted to step out, I want to be CEO, I think I can run this ship. There had to be at some point before that it was clear to you, like when I'm in charge, like when I have the reins of something, we are putting our people and our culture front and center. When did that become apparent?
Yeah, some places I worked prior, they didn't treat people the way that I would like to have been treated. In some ways, they taught me how not to be.
Yeah, that can be a good teacher.
And I try to go out of my way here. We try to go out of our way here, really just that word empathy, not being a bully, and doing the best we can for other people.
That mindset had to have made the layoffs pretty hard then.
Yeah, it's horrible. We all took pay cuts and having to do stuff like that. You want to pay bonuses. You want to hire people, give them a job at what you feel is the best company around. And when you have to lay them off, it's tough. It's very tough.
Well, I admire the perseverance and the stick-to-itiveness to continue here with Deepwell, and I want people to be able to check out everything that you guys are doing. So what digital coordinates can we provide people that want to learn more?
Our LinkedIn page, I know we're real proud. I think we just hit 15,000 followers. But go look at that. We have training videos out there, and just really to see what kind of company we are. Obviously, the website, Matt does very well with that also. I know they have a Facebook page. I'm not on that evil website or whatever that is, but those are the big ones.
Respect. For the people that are, we'll send them.
Yeah.
If you want to check out those links, if you want to learn more about Deepwell and Mark, it is in the podcast app where you're probably listening to this right now, and also available at goingdeepwithaaron.com/podcast for this and every episode of the show. But before we let you go, Mark, I want to give you the mic a final time to issue an actionable personal challenge for the audience.
You said that earlier. I would say the one thing that anybody out there that's maybe just starting out, coming out of college and so forth, find that one person that will help you go out. The network. Let's say, build that network. Find that sponsor. That person that's going to stick their neck out for you. Go build that network, because it's going to be people that help you get everywhere. You're not going to really do it on your own. You're never going to do that. And then find that culture. Obviously you have to have the passion for what you do. But if you do those, I think 3 things, you're gonna have a great career.
Were there any things that you did in the early stages specifically to find that mentor or to get that mentor? Like you realized, that person's speaking truth. I need to just get proximate. I
think as you grow, as you get older and you experience things, you just find how important it really is. It's not necessarily what I think, I lucked into it in a lot of ways. I wish that I knew that when I was younger, because I think it would have been probably even ahead of the game even more. But yeah, I think that's really what you want to, that's what handles it all.
Right on. Well, Mark, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show
My
and
pleasure.
sharing some time with me.
Thank you.
We just went deep with Mark Marmo. Hope everyone out there has a fantastic day.